Thank you for the great presentation. It was very energetic, and well, we heard a lot of future ideas and this huge European open science cloud, etc. Unfortunately, my topic is a little bit, we come down to the grassroots level, and I'm going to talk about the requirements and Horizon 2020 grant agreement. I am Liisa Ewart, legal counsel from Tekes. Tekes is a funding agency for innovation in Finland, and we have funding both for companies and for research organizations, and quite much we fund for applied sciences and cooperation between academic and business life. But I'm here because I'm the legal and financial NCP for Horizon 2020, and I've been in this position since 2006, starting at the time of Framework Program 6 already. And also I've been a legal and financial NCP the whole Framework Program 7, and now in Horizon 2020. So I have seen how the open access pilot came to 7th Framework Program, and how it was a big issue then, and was very controversial, and perhaps the big audience wasn't very ready for that idea of the openness at that time, let's say 4 or 5 years ago. But now it's, among the researchers, I think it's more or less business as usual. But now we go through the policy issues and the requirements themselves. Right. This we go through very fast. The idea of this whole open access in Horizon 2020 comes from the Innovation Union commitment. And this sentence here, free movement of knowledge, that is something that is the key point, the key issue here. Among the free movements of people and capital and everything, we also have the fifth freedom in European Union at the moment, and that it's a free movement of knowledge. As I said, the open access was a pilot in FP7. It was quite widely used at the end of 7th Framework Program, and it was realized through the special clause 39. It wasn't there in the beginning, but it was introduced in more or less like 3 years after the beginning of 7th Framework Program, and it was really the only for publications. Then now we have in Horizon 2020, we have included the open access for scientific publications. We have included in grant agreement, what means that it's mandatory for all the scientific publications. And then we have the pilot. As we used to have the pilot here, now we have the pilot for research data. And that it's also included in the grant agreement, because we don't have these special clauses at all anymore in Horizon 2020, but it's still an option. But it's quite widely used. I heard last month that something like 25% of all the projects have taken this pilot into their actions. So as was said before, I think this new generation and researchers are really taking this idea of open science as a whole, as a business as usual for the everyday scientific work. And then this is something that we just heard, what will be happening in the future. And I have here, when I made these slides, I put the year 2021, thinking about the next framework program, but if we have this as soon as possible, if it's like in 2 or 3 years, it's always possible that the Commission is changing the grant agreement articles, or they they launch some new pilots to the Horizon 2020. If the preparations are so far already in Commission, it's just nice to hear. Because when Horizon 2020 was planned and the rules for participation was written. We started to write it, or Commission started to write it more or less 2011, 2012, and year 2013 already the texts were more or less ready. So, and it was introduced in 2014. So the idea that we can see here, that open access is mandatory and open access for research data pilot, this idea has been introduced to the rules for participation about year 2011. So the history is not far away from the. So this 2021 is, I think, too far away from now. And why open access? And what is the policy background that the Commission took to open access for Horizon 2020? And these are the four main features. Economic growth. They think that it's more efficient if the knowledge is available easy and widely. It not directly but indirectly affect very much for the economic growth in Europe. Better science. It means that when the science is accumulating, that researchers are not doing the same that the others have done already on the other side of Europe. But when the base knowledge is increasing and easily available, it means that the science that people are using the old information and building up something new. So duplication is minimized. In some of the surveys, I've heard that 60% of the science or research work is duplicate research. And I don't know if it's true or not, and nobody can really say the exact percentage, but anyway, the duplication is something that we can avoid to have it in open, and then the science becomes better because it's cumulative effect. Greater efficiency, of course, and then improved transparency. These features was already discussed here. And now we go to this subject I have. Open access, as we saw in this slide, with a lot of circles and the whole open science cycle. Open access only one little part of this whole open science idea. And open access is one little thing in dissemination of results in Horizon 2020. I think it has become a greater issue that it really is, because it's only one way of doing dissemination. And also we can see that the decision or yes or no to publish some result lies with the beneficiaries, and open access becomes an issue only if publication is elected to be the way how to disseminate the results. But this is a little provocative here, but results in research action is not synonym to scientific publication. And this open access requirement in Horizon 2020 applies to this scientific publication. If this open science method or idea or concept comes in the framework programs later on, it means that the results may be, in some day, they may be a kind of target for openness. But at the moment, when we are talking about the Horizon 2020 requirements, it's only the scientific publications that are mandatory to be published openly. They need to be, the results need to be disseminated swiftly, so as soon as possible. And the only barrier or obstacle for this is IPR. Although we are talking about the open science and open access, we cannot forget the requirements or the rules of IPR. Intangible assets are always owned by somebody, and this somebody may decide if to make it open or not. And then the IPR comes into the question, and it's something that you just cannot avoid. And this is, to be honest, it's who is funding the science can decide what to do with the results. Because nowadays it's often thought that the funding instrument, the funding agency, the funding government, the municipality, whatever it is, they put the rules for use the funding, the general conditions, the grant agreements, whatever it is, contractual or legal requirements. But anyway, the one who is paying for the research can decide how to disseminate and what to do with the results. And then the IPR is the system, the legal system to protect the results, and because the beneficiaries are organizations, the researchers are not the beneficiaries of commission, the union funding from the Horizon 2020, not even in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. Even in Marie Curie actions, the organizations are the beneficiaries, and the policy and the best practices of the beneficiaries decide who is the one, or how the disseminate will be done. So this is not that easy that the researcher may always decide what to do with the results or publications. That's the policy of the organization and the beneficiaries. In your cases, it's research organizations or research institutes. So it's teamwork between the employer and the employee. And also in Horizon 2020, the result, how to protect the results, the obligation to protect the results of the action, it's written there in the grant agreement. The goal, the aim in Horizon 2020 is to realize the open access free of charge. It's online, of course, and for any user. It means that it's free of charge for anybody. It's not forbidden to use this golden access way, the golden way to subscribe or to publish your publication, but you may choose that the goal of the Commission is to have it free of charge. They have these 6 months or 12 months grace period in some social sciences or humanities, but for all the others, it needs to be free of charge immediately. And then in this same Article 29, there is point 3 is open access to research data pilot. I come a little bit later. And then the obligation and right to use the EU emblem. That is also important. And this, the open access to scientific publication, it's not that you do the publication and then it's openly accessed, how should I say. The first is then you need to deposit it. And you deposit a machine-readable electronic copy of the published version of or final peer-reviewed manuscript. And this is mandatory. And then the second point is that to ensure open access to this deposit publication. And this part is mandatory in any case. And this part is mandatory when the fundees have not decided to do in some other way. And for example, filing a patent, this patent application and filing the patent is not the dissemination action. It's not the publication meaning in this article. So if in an action, if the steering committee or board or the beneficiaries or the consortium itself, if they decide to do the open access, the publication that will be disseminated by open access, then these provisions comes into the question. This one I said already. And then the metadata, it's also important, but of these practicalities, I think that you have another topic today a little bit later, so I don't go into those. And here is what I just touched a little bit earlier. Green open access, cold open access, both are available. The question that is often asked is that, are these costs are they reimbursed? And this is something that you need to keep in mind, that, for example, in this cold open access, these author charges, author processing charges, they are eligible for reimbursement only if these costs are occurred during the duration of the action. So the publication needs to be done inside the action, that if you want to have those costs reimbursed. And any other cost linked to the open access publishing or whatever you need for that. So they are direct cost in Horizon 2020, but only if the cost occurred inside the duration of the action. And then what kind of repository is okay? This is also a question that is asked quite often. And it may be institutional, subject-based, or centralized. All those are acceptable choices. Institutional means that it's inside a university or among some universities in national archives or whatever. It means the basic rule is that it needs to be deposited in some online archive, so that the results of the research work can be justified later on. This is something that has been said in the guidelines for open access. Beneficiaries should not use a repository which claims rights over deposited publications and precludes access. And this comes for those three basic rules, that it should be for free, it should be available for everyone, and it should be online. And if there are restrictions by the publishers or by the owner of the repositories, and there are certain claims, the beneficiaries should not use them. It's not forbidden, but they should not use them. And Commission recommends this open air as an entry point for researchers, but as we have seen already today, and perhaps you know much better than I do, how many different kind of libraries and projects and infrastructures there are, and will become even more, and they will be funded, and huge and good infrastructures will be developed. So this open air is one and good, but it's not the only one, and it's not. It's recommended, but it's not mandatory to use. And then we come to this open access to research data. The research data as a definition has been under discussion quite a bit, and this is something that has been written down by the Commission in one of the guidelines. It's not written in the annotated grant agreement. It's not written down in a text itself, but it's in a footnote, because at the time when these guidelines and grant agreement has been written, this wasn't very clear then. I think that it has been developed a little bit, that nowadays the academic world is quite in a common understanding what the research data is. But still you need to understand that the text that you need to follow when following the Horizon 2020 provisions and guidelines and agreements, it's a little bit vague there. because everything in this field, everything is going so fast forward. Everything is in every year, the last year text is a little bit oldish. So this is something we have to leave now, that we are in this transition period, as the former speakers have said. The open access to research data pilot is something that I believe it's going to be one of the normal features in the future, but at the moment in Horizon 2020, it's still a pilot. And it includes this, that the data that is almost everything coming out in a digital form in the research work. It will be deposited, and it includes two different kind of or types of data. Data including metadata to validate the results. This is the most important in this point. And then if this is the specific requirement in Horizon 2020, if you are participating this pilot, you have to do this data management plan. It's something that is a requirement only for those who are participating the pilot. Everyone can do it, and it would be good to do it. It should be. I think it should be wider application in every action in Horizon 2020. But at the moment, the application for writing the data management plan belongs to the pilot. And then the second is that you need to provide information about tools and instruments for validating the results. So those are the two features of the pilot at the moment. But I believe that the practice has evolved a little bit further already. So, and everything I have said today, more or less, can be found in these specific guidelines on open access to scientific publication and research data. And they, how many of you has participated in Horizon 2020? Not so many. How many of you would like to participate? Good. That's more encouraging. So it means that participant portal is at the place you have to go, and you have to make familiar yourself with. There is a place called reference documents. And these reference documents is this kind of list. It's wider. I just take one screenshot from there. And in there, you can see horizontal issues, and these guidelines are here. They can be found here. So whatever you want to know about Horizon 2020, and even this little minor detail of Horizon, like open access, you will find it from these reference documents. I don't want to make it a minor issue. Of course, it's a big issue, but it's only in Article 29, it's 29.1 in a grant agreement that is 50 articles, and at the moment with all the annotations about 500 pages. So it's 2 pages of 500, how they explain what is open access. And this is not the importance or not importance of the issue. It's only that it should be business as usual in the research world. Thank you.
Do we have a couple of questions, maybe? We have a few minutes. Don't hesitate. Yes?
While the other ones still think about a question, I can make one. I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but in a way, I think the important thing you said was buried in one bullet point, and that's the data management plan. I think from the commissional view as well, I think everything in the future will be around the data management plan. So whatever you do, you first have to do a data management plan which states in a way and directs your things for the future. And this is a thing which is evolving, and that's why it's so difficult, and there are no clear instructions really. And again, from the Research Data Alliance side, for example, we are doing some work to make the data management plan understandable, because I mean, this is politics and this is very many other things as well. This is not technology. As Jean-Claude said, it's about changing the concept of doing research. But data management plan, I think that's the key thing, and it was unfortunately buried as one bullet point.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And as I tried to express myself, that these concepts are from 2011, 2012, and so much has happened in this field in the last 2 or 3 years. At that time, when I was in an expert group of member states creating the rules for participation and creating the wordings for a grant agreement, this data management plan was quite a new issue then. And data management and open access questions and data research pilot questions, they were discussed under the topic of IPR policy. Then we didn't have the concept, or it wasn't openly discussed about the concept data management plan. We were talking about that open access issues, open science issues, and data management should be under the IPR policies of the organizations. Now the data management plan is I think, should be at the same level as the IPR issues in the organizations, because IPR is a legal, something intangible asset protected by legal means. And it's not the same issue than open science and open access issues. It's IP, it's still not IPR as such. So it's a little bit like they should be both. And I totally agree that this data management plan should be more or less mandatory in all the beneficiaries in Horizon 2020. And this question actually comes quite clear in this recommendation for knowledge management and code of practice that was published 2008 by the Commission, and it has been taken as a guideline in Article 23A in the grant agreement, and Commission has taken a policy that it will be the so-called soft law, that it's not written in statutes, but it's written as a mode of recommendation. And this recommendation, code of practice for managing the intellectual property and knowledge transfer. What is that? It's a quite long name, but it's something like best practices for managing the knowledge transfer and code of practice for management of intellectual property, or something like that. It's a very long name, but anyway, it's included in the grant agreement as one article, and it's from the year 2008.
All right, I think we can probably start the break now. Thank you, Liisa. I think round of applause.